Chapter 7, Barefoot and Beggarly. Janner felt a sheen of cold sweat break over him like a fever. It took him a moment to realize what he'd just heard. Had Armullion just insulted the Fangs? Amidst the waters of his shock was a splash of surprise that the beggarly man on the platform was in fact the famous storyteller. Was there some mistake? Surely Armullion the bard would at least be wearing shoes, he thought, and by the filthy, callous look of the man's feet, Janner could see that he rode no horse but walked wherever he went. If not for the weather-worn whistle harp in his hands and the deep waters of his eyes, Janner would have believed the man was an impostor. The Fangs pushed Glip Folk aside and bounded toward the wagon, drawing their swords as they ran. Janner's whole body tightened, and he tried to tear his eyes away from the moment when the Fangs reached Armullion. Many in the crowd emerged from their shock in time to scream, but the bard merely stood on the wagon and smiled as the Fangs neared. Armullion strummed his whistle harp and raised his voice in song. The Fangs faltered, jerked to a stop, and crouched before Armullion, trying in vain to cover their ears, and waved their swords at him at the same time. "Silence!" one of them hissed. Armullion stopped singing and raised his eyebrows at them as if annoyed at the interruption. "Yes? Careful, bard," the Fangs spat. "It would be nothing for us to chop you into bits and gobble you into a broth." Armullion gazed at their sinister faces with that same reckless smile. "I doubt you'd like the taste of me. I'm wiry and ill-fed." The only sound was the rattle of leaves in the wind. "Will that be all?" the bard said after a moment, lifting the whistle harp to play again. The Fangs stood frozen, but Janner thought he saw their black eyes shift sideways at the throng of people surrounding them on the green. "Enjoy your petty songs," the lead Fang growled. He turned to the crowd, "and we will enjoy killing you all. The moment Nag the Nameless decides he is finished with you, may that day come quickly." The Fang's tongue flitted out between his long, narrow teeth, and his mouth curled upward in a grin. He clacked his teeth together and hissed at a little girl cowering at her parents' feet, as those surrounding her on the field looked down at the ground or closed their eyes. The Fang who had spoken spat on the grass and moved away, his three companions following it with hisses of their own. The silence was broken by the strum of the whistle harp. The whiskery man raised his voice again in song, and there was no longer any doubt in Janner's mind that he was indeed Armullion the bard. The people sat enthralled as he sang the ballad of Lanric and Rube, and Janner and Tink found themselves pushing down tears as they listened to the tragic tale. After that he sang another for the rapt audience, then another, until the sun sank westward and the light grew golden, lengthening the shadows across the lawn. As if the bard somehow knew, he ended his final song just moments before the sound of a low horn tore through the dusky air. Armullion smiled widely, and the many listeners gasped with excitement. "The dragons," Janner said, grabbing Tink by his shoulders. Tink smiled back at him with his sticky purple cheeks. "Let's go," Tink said. "We have to find a good seat." "Come on, Lily," Janner yelled, turning to go. People in the crowd were pulling one another to their feet and surging back toward the town. "Lily," Janner repeated, turning around when she didn't answer, but Lily was gone. Janner told himself to calm down. The same thing had happened earlier. She couldn't have gone far. She had just been there on the lawn, rubbing Nugget's belly, hadn't she? "Lily Iggaby," he called, turning in every direction. People were everywhere, jostling the boys as they moved. "Out of the way, boy," said an old man with a cane, holding his pants up to his chin as he pushed by. The Torboral woman's wide dresses rustled past Janner and Tink, tugging them this way and that. Then a boisterous cluster of Dugtowners appeared like a wall before them. Janner found himself ducking under elbows and diving between legs, and twice he tripped over the Torboral woman's floppy, pointy shoes. Tink was nowhere to be seen, but Janner knew he was near because of the shouts of surprise and the cursing coming from his left. Janner worried that the fangs might be drawn to this new commotion, but to his relief, the crowd finally thinned and he saw the fangs were gone. That was almost fun, Tink said, brushing himself off. Janner spun around and grabbed Tink by the collar. There's nothing fun about this, Tink. Do you realize that she could be hurt? She could be snatched up by a fang or killed by one even. We have to find her, Janner glared at his brother. Was Tink really so foolish that he didn't realize how bad this situation was? As worried as he was for Lily, Janner also was thinking about his own skin. What would Podo do when he found out that Janner had failed in his duty? How would he live with himself if something actually happened to his sister? Tink flung Janner's hands from his shirt and backed away. He looked around Dunn's Green at the remaining people, folding up their blankets and gathering their belongings for the walk to the cliffs. It finally sunk in for Tink that their situation was dire. He put his hands to his mouth, turning in all directions to yell over and over again, Lily! Podo had taught them that if ever they were separated, they were to meet at the last place they had all been together. Surely Lily would be waiting for them innocently with Nugget in her lap once the rest of the throng had cleared. She must be right around here, Tink. I know she was here with Nugget just a few minutes ago. Janner scanned the lawn with a hand on his forehead. Tink didn't answer. His eyebrows were scrunched together, and he was wringing his hands, calling her name with a tremble in his voice. She'll be fine, you'll see, Janner said, trying to sound optimistic. Tink and Janner called for her until the crowd was nearly dispersed, but still she was nowhere to be seen. Janner asked the stragglers if they'd seen a little girl, but they answered only with irritated looks. They were far more concerned with sea dragons than these pesky little kids. Finally, Janner and Tink stood alone on the lawn in the fading light. Little Lily Igby was gone. The brothers looked at one another, unable to speak, unsure of what to do. Then a sound came faintly to their ears from the direction of the town, a sound that deepened their fear to terror and set them running as fast as they could run. A dog was barking, and someone, a little girl, Lily, was screaming.